Hello again, everyone. I'd like to take a real quick look at Kim Jong-un's New Year's address. These are kind of important. They're really not to be underestimated. If you want to kind of get some kind of an idea of what's going on inside North Korea, and also it gives you an idea on Kim Jong-un's thinking, because he actually writes these things. He puts them up together himself. I've just got the synopsis that was put up on KCNA. Don't have the whole speech yet, but I think that's all we need is just the synopsis. It's just very brief, and it really gives us an insight into the coming new year, what might happen in this coming new year. Basically, it falls into three parts, the speech. You can always take one of these speeches and you can divide it into sections. And so it comes into three parts. And the first part is he talks about nuclear weapons. The second part, he talks about industry and consumer goods. And the third part of the speech, the last part, is about diplomacy. And the one thing you don't hear much about is the military. In previous New Year's addresses, he's always talked a lot about the military. Here we get one sentence, and so I think that's kind of surprising. But he talks about his nuclear button, the finger on the nuclear button. He's got one on his desk. A nuclear button is always on the desk of my office, and this is just a reality, not a threat. He's got the button there. And he talks about nuclear weapons as a powerful and reliable deterrent. The United States can never fight a war against me and our state. Interesting how he puts himself first there, against me or our state. And he talks a couple paragraphs about the delivery means, the rockets, but he doesn't go there. He doesn't name the rockets or anything like that. And then he moves on to other matters. He talks about things that really need to be done. He's kind of have a laundry list. It's like the American State of the Union or other heads of state. They always put these things up. So this is kind of a State of the Union thing from Kim Jong-un. And he talks about the areas that need improvement, where they have to work harder. He talks about electricity generation, iron and steel, the chemical industry, talks about phosphates and fertilizer. He's really big on that. And it talks about the machine industry. And then it goes on to light industry, consumer goods, agriculture and fishery, tourism industry. Talked about the Wonsan. He's got to improve Wonsan area, and improvements in Samjin County, and then more housing for the people. So that's his laundry list of things he needs to get done. And then just a single line on the military was we should further bolster up military capabilities and self-defense, for self-defense, and that was it. And then here's the pull quote. I think from the speech, here's the pull quote. This is the one that's most important. The DPRK, as a peace-loving and responsible nuclear power, will not use nuclear weapons unless hostile aggression forces encroach upon the sovereignty and interest of our state. We do not pose any nuclear threat to any country or region. And generally in a speech, one of these by Kim Jong-un, there's always the important statement that's being made, and you kind of got to look for it. And that's what you're looking for, and you kind of have to understand what it means. And that's the case here. When he makes that statement about, well, we're a nuclear nation, but we're not going to threat to anybody. And attach this quote, that what Kim Jong-un said, to something that was said in the New Year's address of President Xi Jinping from China. And he said something interesting. China will always be a builder of world peace and a contributor of global development and a keeper of international order. That's President Xi of China. A keeper of international order. Now, in my mind, we take these two statements. We take the pull quote from Kim Jong-un and we take President Xi's statement from China as a keeper of international order. Now, it used to be that the United States was the world's policeman, or considered to be. You know, the Pax Americana, you know, and before the United States, it was Great Britain, you know, Pax Britannica, where Britain would send their ships and keep warring nations from going at each other's throats. America was never a Pax Americana. America, you know, the world's policeman, no. America always went in and sided on one side or the other. For instance, Kosovo and Serbia. You know, Serbia was our natural allies. We should have gone on the side of Serbia, but instead we went on the side of the bad guys. And almost always the United States gets in and gets on the side of the bad guys. For whatever reason, I don't know. You know, you saw that happen in Iraq. You go inside, you get inside of the bad guys. So here's President Xi saying we're the keeper of international order. And I think that the takeaway that I have from Kim Jong-un's address is that this was directed mostly towards China. Now there's this whole address, that part, his pull quote was saying, you know, we're not a threat to anybody. That was directed towards China because China and North Korea have a very complicated relationship. Trying to figure it out is almost a waste of time. You know, China just doesn't have a lot of influence over North Korea. They'd like to, but they don't. And North Korea keeps China at arm's length. But they do have a mutual defense pact, and I believe this was like 1962 or something. Then it was revised in 1996, somewhere in that, and again in 2001. And I believe it was Article 2 about at what point would either nation come to the defense if they were attacked. And China and North Korea revised that Article 2 of their Mutual Defense Pact to say China would come to the defense of North Korea, but only if North Korea wasn't the aggressor. If somebody attacked North Korea without provocation, then China would come to North Korea's defense. And so here's what we have here, I think, is what Kim Jong-un is saying, look, we're not a threat to anybody. We've got our nukes. But that's to keep people away from us. It's purely defensive. So we're not a threat to anybody, and that's speaking to that Article 2 of the Mutual Defense. So I believe it's next March when the United States runs its war games every spring. And Full Eagle and Key Resolve. And these things are massive. It's just a huge, huge show of force. I think last year it was 300,000 South Korean troops and something like 60 or 70,000 American troops. And they run these big, huge war games for a couple of 3 weeks, and it freaks North Korea out. They go, you know, why? And the United States says, no, 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 this is purely for defensive purposes. Well, North Korea is not going to attack anybody. They're not going to, you know, that's over. North Korea is not going to come storming across the line. It's simply not going to happen. So North Korea keeps freaking out. And the purpose of the war games, in my opinion, the purpose of the war games is to provoke North Korea into doing something stupid. You know, just lashing out and doing something, you know, something rash. So far, they've kept their powder dry. But what's really going on here is that China is really pissed off about these war games as well. They haven't said much, but they're really angry about them because the United States is playing around in its backyard or front yard. And they just don't like this idea. So It may be, and I'm not sure, but this is kind of a prediction thing. But it may be that China is going to try to put a stop to these war games that the United States keeps holding every year, and say, that's enough. We've had enough with the war games. And what it might do is move military assets. The most it might do is move military assets into North Korea. And by military assets, I mean they might move a squadron of fighter jets into somewhere, or they might bring a couple of O-55 destroyers into Pyongyang or over around to Wonsan. Or they might just have top-level military delegations go back and forth right before the war games start. There may be even, although I really super doubt it, but there may be where Kim Jong-un goes to Beijing and talks with President Xi. And that might, I really doubt that'll happen, but it might. So, don't know, but look for China. Look for China's reaction to these upcoming war games, because what Kim Jong-un has said in this New Year's address, he's put it right out there. Our focus now is not on the military. He talks a lot about the party, the party being in control. But it used to be the military was in control. Now it's the party. And I get the impression by him talking, reading about, when he talks about nuclear weapons, it's a done deal. He's got his nuclear weapons. They're done. He might do a little more testing, but basically that's done. And China would love for North Korea to stop testing. Just stop it. Launch a few rockets if you want to, but just stop with the nuclear testing. So Kim Jong-un, in this article, he says he said the test of super powerful thermonuclear weapons was conducted altogether with the test of various types of nukes delivery means, successfully attaining with flying colors our general ambition and strategic goal. Eventually, the Republic came to possess powerful and reliable war deterrent, irreversible with any force. So now that's done. He said, "Look, we've got our weapons, and so the development phase is over. Now he's got them, and I think China wants to hear that. Okay, fine, stop testing. Now you got them, so now relax." And China has said on many occasions, there will be no war on the peninsula, the Korean Peninsula. So this might be fitting in. China and North Korea might be starting to move together a little bit here in the face of the upcoming war games. So we'll see. I don't know. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. So leave your comments and suggestions in the space below, and tell me what you think. But yeah, it looks like Kim Jong-un is trying to assuage North Korea or China's fears. And of course, at the end, he talks about the diplomacy part, and mostly that's with South Korea. And he wants to move closer, but that's in every New Year's address he makes. He's always talking about wanting to move closer to South Korea and patch things up. And he said the Workers' Party of Korea and the DPRK government will develop good neighborly and friendly relations with all countries which respect the sovereignty of our country and are friendly towards it and strive to build a just and peaceful world. And so on and so forth. Like I say in the past, people are saying, well, this is an olive leaf, an olive branch from Kim Jong-un to South Korea. But in every New Year's address, he always puts this in there. Come on, can't we get along? And what seems to be the problem? I mean, I think it was his first New Year's address, something like that. He said, look, let's try for a cooling off period and just not say anything bad about each other for a while. Let's start with that the first step, okay? This is Kim Jong-un's suggestion. Let's just cool it with the rhetoric. That's the first step. If we can stop talking bad about each other, then maybe we can move on to the next step. And for about 3 or 4 months that worked. And then who broke it? South Korea. just started lambasting North Korea about something. And all bets were off, and it was off to the races. And then they're back going at each other. Interestingly enough, I haven't seen any of that for most of last year. I haven't seen a lot of that back and forth. Certainly haven't seen any provocations. You know, and there's none of this nonsense that you see going back and forth. Even the balloons, you know, I haven't heard a lot about propaganda balloons flying over. So there is a lessening of the tension, and but we'll see what happens. Anyway, that's all I have on that subject for the moment, and like I say, let me know what you think, and as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.